Welcome Pisces to your in-depth weekly forecast for week commencing the 17th of June for the Ascendant, the Sun or the Moon. On the screen now I'm showing the event chart right at the start of the week. Now it's important to be mindful of your two ruling planets, traditional Jupiter but also the mighty Neptune. I say mighty not in terms of mass, which of course Jupiter is the big player there, but more in terms of its impact, because as last week came to a close, Neptune was very active in terms of that. Neptune in your sign has certainly since 2012 been asking you some questions around your identity. Maybe the more spiritual dimension has really called out to you, but Saturn being with you over the last year and a quarter has brought an earthier, grittier dimension to bear. And if at times Neptune saw you wanting to be quite escapist, or perhaps have time in great peace and tranquility, Saturn may have been asking some quite tough questions and giving you a bit more of an earthy dimension. But last week, just briefly, both of these planets squared up with the cluster of energy in the sign of Gemini, which is the fourth house for you, and that's very much about how we feel about things. And somehow or another, the whole emotional dimension last week, or family needs, or domestic needs, may have just felt really exhausting and demanding. But I'm going to bring you some really positive news as you come into this new week. The planet, which is closest to one of the key angles of the ascendant, the fourth house, descendant, and the 10th house, is Uranus. And Uranus is the planet of enterprise, and it's in the earthy Taurus, but it's forging a semi-sextile as you enter this week. If something did feel stuck around that home, emotional or family matter last week, look at it afresh as you come into this new week. It could unlock a solution. Also, Mars in the same sector early last week aroused a very big psychological energy in its clash with Pluto, which may have seen something come up and get shared which was quite painful. Maybe someone told you something that you weren't expecting, a revelation, even a secret, and that could have rocked you back on your heels. But Mars, just like Uranus, starts this week in a semi-sextile with your traditional ruler Jupiter. So I think where things did feel a bit stuck for some of last week, as you come into this week, there is the potential for something to crystallize more positively around your home, emotional and family situation, because Venus and Mercury are so tightly tethered together early on Monday in this sector. Venus in the fourth house is great for redecoration. Mercury can be about how we think about things, but they're both moving into the uber exciting fifth house later on Monday. The fifth house is about joyfulness, fun, sociability. It's where we manifest our talent. It can be where, if we have children, their pursuits can also give us a great deal of pleasure too. So then moving into the fifth house gives you a chance to reinvigorate the phase you've been going through, which, to be honest, since the start of June may have felt very bogged down, a bit inward, a bit lacking in the desire to connect and interact socially. But it is true that Neptune still applies to them as this week begins. So clarity about what you want still remains important, even though they've moved into a much more productive area. They also clash almost straight away with Pluto. That 12th house energy that came up at the start of last week, maybe something rather uncomfortable about your past, an attitude or some kind of interest, or perhaps, could I even say, some kind of obsession you had with a particular approach to life. You're being challenged to face it and release it and actually make yourself available to enjoy life in a freer way. And although Pluto does retain its influence this week, both with Mercury and Venus, and then from the summer solstice with the sun moving into Cancer on Thursday, it doesn't mean to say that you can't make progress. The planets are pushing you to enjoy yourself more, to embrace that joyfulness as this week goes on. And do you know, there's the chance to do this not just for the following 4 weeks from Thursday, but broadly for the following 13 weeks, because the summer solstice brings in cardinal quadrant 2, the second of the 13-week quarters of the year. The sign of Cancer is also cardinal, so it's powerful. It wants to achieve things. The fifth house is pushing you to manifest your talents, your flair, your artistry, your humour, but also it's the sector potentially of chance, so of speculation. If you are someone who's got an idea that really excites you, then you're being tempted to investigate it. What Pluto's asking you to do, I feel, is just make sure you're clear on your motives. So whether it's someone you're really drawn to romantically, whether it's to do with an attitude that you've been perhaps attached to that you know hasn't perhaps been so good for you, it might be a bit too much sugar in your food. You know where I'm coming from though. We all have things. Me, it's calorific goodies, terrible. Got to have the ice cream after dinner. And those things are pleasant and good, but not if our teeth start to hurt too much. So we can have treats, but if they become almost a psychological reliance to give ourselves some kind of up, that's where the Pluto energy in the 12th house is showing itself to you. But that fifth house energy that bursts through will give you a more outgoing vibe. Mercury moving into 5, even though it's not at its best in Cancer, we'll see your bubbly sense of humour come through. You can be more flirty. You're going to feel more glamorous with Venus in house 5. All good stuff, which brings us to the full moon in the sign of Capricorn. Don't be surprised as this week draws to a close after all the aggravation of recent weeks in terms of having to deal with stuff to do with where you live, who you live with, and how, or to do with your inner world, and perhaps feeling a bit conflicted about what to do in terms of Saturn and Neptune are asking you to redefine your personal approach to your security, and that's means challenging what you have. So the cluster of energy moving into house 5 being faced by the moon in 11, which is how we meet the collective, suggests that you're going to be in demand as this week draws to a close. And as much as you may have felt that people haven't been so attuned to you, or you felt a bit more inclined to stay with what you know, or even stay in, you're really going to find yourself wanting to be much more playful. So could be a very exciting full moon for you personally over the next 2 weeks with some choices. Perhaps those choices are going to be around your love life. Is there more than one person that you're drawn to? There could be one person you find exciting, but you're not sure if they'd be a stable long-term partner. Or is there someone you are with who's on the face of it stable, but there's no excitement? There could be some of that going on, and part of what can complicate things is that Neptune forges a T-square with this particular full moon, and that's because Neptune is so late in your sign. So on the anaretic degree, 29 degrees, it's going to move out of Pisces next year briefly into Aries, but because it is your ruling planet, you can really relate to Neptune. But remember, Neptune can erode as well as enchant. Is there something that you need to just let wash away in your world and bring in something new and fresh? Maybe around your social world, maybe around your friendships, maybe around your love life. Or are you clinging on to something because addictively it feels safe and secure, but actually it's denying you having a sharper, perhaps more challenging in some ways, but a much more engaging lifestyle. So you're entering a time of some big questions, but some big opportunities. Thank you for joining me, Pisces. Have a great week. If you've yet to do so, please subscribe to the channel.